Quite frankly, I mean, now getting to this point of the season, obviously taking a look at these two teams, they're going to be looking at CSP to start things off, even though we do like to go ahead and kind of give a little bit of credit over to UO Green, but being Chiview, Ostino, Chetty, Eaton, and Jake being the likes of the Concordia St. Paul Blue team, another team that obviously has earned their right here, I mean, as anybody else that we will see, not being any of those LCQ teams. So thankfully, I mean, starting off here strong today, we're seeing like definitive winners kind of make sure to get their way through, being the 6th seed and the 11th seed overall inside this bracket. But CSP being that higher seed, that's why they do have themselves the benefit of being at least the first one presented here as a home team.
Yep, and that means that their opponents of University of Oregon Green are gonna be Munkus, Castle, Congus, Grux, and Kale. The squad that has been in Champions is going to defend their spot here in Champions to see how far they can advance through this Nationals bracket. But we already have our maps and bands ready to go, Mick. So why don't you take us through those?
I mean, quite frankly, it's something different, thankfully. Compared to what we typically see in the collegiate setup, we do already see that a sit being banned, but we see the split being banned as well. They're going and get things started off with the Breeze and Bind selections coming through right off the get-go, which I'm loving to see. Wait, do you see map number 3, map number 4 down there, and Sunset and Icebox? Those are actually going to be banned because we're going right back to that best of 3 format. We're taking a little bit of a break at that best of 5. We were typically kind of used to singing those regionals and seeing Lotus as our final decider if we do end up getting to that point in time.
CSP Blue. So I can't wait to see how that kind of differs for these two squads, considering I've seen not having a Sentinel be catastrophic for squads at times without that sense of stability on the defense.
I mean, already going ahead and get things underway. I mean, pushing through into these double doors up right at the middle of the map. You do see the likes of UO Green looking to just get themselves that aggressive start that we're looking for. And obviously hoping for here on Breeze. If you want to get warmed up, pressing W key is going to be the best way to do it. And we already see an entry being made onto the A side. But Concordia has made an outstanding effort in just locking off a lot of these heads. Knowing they came through the majority of double door, it makes an easy little funnel there. Quite frankly, like fish in a barrel to find the majority of these guys. Cut them off, and then make your way right back to A main, where you know those shots are coming from the final couple. So Concordia, while we didn't really see too much of an actual idea come through on the side of UO Green, Concordia, regardless, thought process was not behind it. The shots were definitely there.
Yeah, they just completely shut out that A main attempt to get the majority of the players engaged before they get the spike plant down. So with dominance, we are going to be able to see the heavier force up, throw weapons steady, and then that standard starting that you want to see for Jake and on Breeze.
Oh, I think, quite frankly, I mean, to start things off here in the round, it's another attacking side for UO Green to be expected, but they just don't have the same weaponry. They're not looking nearly as even, obviously, considering what we see, just universal pistols across everybody's arsenal. But Concordia on this earlier round, I'm kind of curious to know whether or not we're going to see these Spectres pushing up, maybe to some degree, looking for these early frags, or if anybody's going to go for that avenue. Whether it be that Vandal, whether it be that Guardian, whether it be anybody who wants to kind of put this initiative on the field and look to get some of these frags. What we are seeing is a little bit of an emphasis towards Tube. Already a couple shots going off, and Congus being in a very bad spot. Quite frankly, I mean, that's just easy. That's good as dead, quite frankly. And everybody else looking to see really where the rotation can come through. It gives a little bit of a cue to let you know that B-side may be the better option, because you don't know if anybody had actually pushed through that and could be now inside your spawn.
So for now, mid default, it was a flawless start to the round for CSP Blue, and with only one member falling, they're looking like they're trudging towards that perfection to have as successful of a third round as they could find.
30 seconds left.
So 1v4 here for Castle. Only a classic in hand. Fortunately, they have the spike, but they knew somebody was nest. They knew somebody was tunnel here. So there's a lot of angles to clear, and it's going to be hard just to win this outright fight against Jake in the first place.
In the second round, nothing but a classic to work with. I mean, you're going to run into somebody eventually, and they're going to have a much better gun than you are. Only real chance you have is to go ahead and find, and maybe the drop that came from the Yoru of that Vandal, but somebody else is going to be picking it up, and it's going to be a trade-off. But what we would hope to maybe be that Spectre, but that just wasn't the case. It was seemingly kind of one of those other weapons, which the Sheriff still was present. So even then, it's enough for this team to kind of compensate, maybe find something to work with in this round as well. With a Vandal, with a Guardian, and a Bulldog on the arsenal here of Concordia for this third round coming up, I think, quite frankly, they have themselves a pretty darn good chance, all things considered. I mean, they have the guns that are available for them. I think That Guardian already matching up over towards the A main side of the map. I think, quite frankly, this could be a lineup. This could be a gunfight that goes in their direction to maybe get an extra gun to work with and really cause this domino effect we're expecting them in this third round to really start to work on. And there it is, already shots out. If you want to kind of invest that Sova drone to push up a little bit, maybe see if there's a secondary player, or just use your face. No matter what, as long as it's a jump peak, you know you're safe off the back of it.
I mean, yeah, it's a huge first blood. You know that this round you got to take those eager fights, those chance fights, to find frags when you can, knowing that when they finally choose a site to execute onto, if you don't have a numbers advantage there, these worse weapons are going to start losing battles, losing ground. And that weight's now about to be placed upon the Viper solo defensively holding this site. Yes, there's the lurk from the Yoru between this crossfire. That would be a weapon upgrade collected. But Chetty's only 1 HP, so if the timing is wrong here, it would have been ecstatic, but Eden grabbing that frag keeps things in CSP Blue's favor ever so slightly.
Yeah, I mean, I think now, quite frankly, when you do see kind of how these kills are going, I mean, the tempo's picking up a little bit here for Concordia, already going ahead, surmounting a couple of these guns, getting an actual arsenal to work with, and knowing that the spike is down. You'd expect to cue the rotations through these spawns to be picking up that arsenal and really kind of get that RPG element to start taking place here. So already Concordia being on site, knowing there's only a couple players remaining, it makes some easy kills for at least there in the back of the map to get that singular, but with Castle being the last one remaining in a 1v3 situation, sitting back towards that wall, trying to at least circumnavigate a couple of these players. It's only going to be good for so long. Able to find 2 off the back of it, but not enough to actually protect that spike from the other 2 remaining.
Just like that, they win their anti-eco, they win their bonus round, collect those additional weapons, and ensure that Green is not able to get off to a successful start, to get off the ground. And now you can even see the repercussions of that, the indecisiveness in terms of what they want to buy, what they want to ensure they still have in those pockets for next round when they go for another rifle round. And with that Guardian and with that sniper rifle in their arsenal, it gives me a glimmer of hope just knowing what we know about this map and how it functions. But my concern is this front that's about to move through cave while an operator's posted up towards mid. So you're going to be corralling these members hopefully back towards Jake, back towards that operator.
I mean, you're looking to just see really how you can funnel these guys in, and already going ahead getting that first kill is going to be obviously insurmountable here for the side of Concordia. But I think, quite frankly, even then, looking at these guns in hand, they're going to have a natural advantage. And the one thing you're kind of hoping to be that rescue, that hero, that Kate player, being Uncas right in the middle of the map, looking to play with that Marshall, looking to see if you can get anything to work off of. And quite frankly, I just don't know if it's going to come in their direction. Already knowing there's some emphasis towards the middle of the map, getting an initial kill over there. Hale is now your one that's going to be taking the reins off the back of that role, having to once again kind of carry something here. Get the team in the book bag and at least make this round expensive. Because quite frankly, I think that's your best real shot in this situation. Castle with nothing but a sheriff in hand, and maybe pick something else up, but even then, is it going to be enough to really carry yourself to get around win? Right at the middle of the map, you haven't dedicated yourself anywhere. You haven't really gotten too much of an actual idea of where these players are stationing themselves until finally, when they do expose any of these Concordia players, they are ready to roll. They are absolutely reading UO Green in this kind of one-man in a singular avenue of the map approach, to the extent that, where quite frankly, you're not doing much. And I think, honestly, they're not going to be going for that very often. That's just more of a scrappy play. That's something you're just kind of leaning in the back of the pocket if things just do go down and everybody's getting desperate for something. But this is going to be another one of those rounds, or at least the first legitimate one, I'd say. Obviously, where we're seeing a full arsenal across the field. But you've already given Jake that leniency with an operator in hand, which could just shut you down immediately. But you need to know he's A site. I mean, realistically, we've seen him positioned there again and again and again, and you should get the cue by now.
Yeah, no, I mean, I do want to point out how deep we were able to see that Yodo get through mid-door and how much space they gained before the Harbor got it under control. And that makes me think that that's exactly what they're going to try to go for again, is abuse this mid-control. If you are able to flush that operator out, flush Jake out. And for now, they're going for this kind of B attempt through tunnel. And in the meantime, Grox is doing a good job taking care of that flank play so they can go full green light, full steam ahead here and get this plant down. As long as these mid players don't throw a wrench into it. And with that wall not being up anymore because of the low toxins, yeah, you have to lean in to plays like that Hunter's Fury to make sure those players cannot push forward.
Yeah, I think quite frankly, the Hunter's Fury is a good call in some regards, so long as you make sure to kind of at least get some cues, but you even then kind of choke out a couple of these players. The big thing that we're looking at, though, is the isolation of these players once we actually see the answer coming through. Kale sitting towards the outer end of the map, the denial of that spike plant going off is just a very big toll that we're seeing being taken on UO Green because you don't really have too much to actually work with. Having to play for that retake and having to actually get the emphasis now lets you know where the approach is coming from, but somebody didn't get the cue. It comes down to Chifu, comes down to Kale in that final fight, and what we see, Concordia saying, there's a lot much more on the line when we already have locked you out so far, so let's keep that train rolling.
I mean, I'm so surprised. That round looked so strong for UO Green at the start of the round. They were getting those early frags. They gained that space on the B.
Any chance of adjustment to the team that's already ahead, and they don't want to see whether or not that time allocation will give them even more discussion to really start willing up these plans. But I think, quite frankly, the risk is worth the reward. I mean, no matter what, you still get that chance to go ahead, collaborate with your team, start to slow things down, take a minute and say, look, it's not as big of a deal as we're chalking it down to be. Just play the game, play as best you can. Let's just run into this next round with the best mentality that we can. So already having a Blade Storm to work with, UO Green, they do have themselves some resources. And if you do find at least somewhat of an initial start, knowing that Operator is there with the Blade Storm, I think, it could be a good call to go ahead and maybe go somewhere else, or unless you want to take a vertical approach from this. But it seems like it's not really going to catch anybody off guard. So everybody going ahead, evacuating the site, it's going to look good for a retake to some degree, knowing that even then that Blade Storm is off the board. UO Green do have a shot, knowing the vicinity of these guns are going to start to excel the closer and closer Concordia get.
But they have a reckoning, so that's my guess is why they fled that site. They have a retake plan, they're structured, they're rehearsed, and now they're going to even plop their own Bleed Storm so that that Operator isn't a shackle on this retake. So you said maybe there's hope for UO Green, but that has quickly been dashed. Kale in the 1v3 might have the timing, but it's not planted for them. Planted in the safety of the pillar, the safety of the cove, and even if they win this fight against Chief Chetty like they just did, Spike's been stuck all the way, and Eden gonna try and go for that Operator, my guess, or just survive to fight another day. And it's a 6-0 now, favoring CSPB, showing that you don't need a Sentinel on your defensive half.
I mean, yeah, that's a big thing now, quite frankly. Already sitting that worst case scenario and even half at the end of the day. I mean, we see Concordia coming out here swinging, quite frankly. We're expecting handshakes as an introduction, and we see just a right hook come out from Concordia where they're just not giving you really the chance to just recover your steps and kind of understand where you are and what's going on. So UO Green, sure, things aren't looking too hot for them, but they have at least willed something up here in the meantime. They've accumulated a couple of their ults, so they can go ahead and maybe throw these X buttons out there, let it solve a couple of their problems. But they haven't really solved anything besides the mystery of who's over towards this B side. We may be seeing just another retake underway, but the Hunter's Fury, we're expecting that to come in a little bit sooner. While it is a little bit late, it's still going to find possibly at least that information to let you know and circumnavigate these players and allocate them, disperse them to different areas of the map where you can have your guys go off. And speaking of guys going off, that's Grox coming out with a 3K, locking all of these Concordia players looking to kind of set up this retake. They don't even get a chance or even a shred of light, a possibility to get that done. So it's really just down to Chifu, which, I mean, heck, if there's anybody who could have gotten it done, it would have been that sub with the information, but he doesn't want to do that. The Operator's way too priceless of an actual piece of your arsenal, knowing that Jet can kind of carry off the back of it, that you want to make sure that one goes into the next.
Yeah, and it's interesting that they actually pre-fired a shot to the pit, because I was hoping they would play for some more of those exit picks, you know, try and bait these players into fights, because they know that that economy is fragile. So frags like that on the castle in the last seconds of a map are not what you want to have, because look at the buys. I mean, you're going to force now a light shield for Grox, and you can see Castle's also going to work with nothing following this round if they do not tie it together, start getting the second on the board. And I want to praise, obviously, UO Green instead of hark on them for losing that last rifle, because they finally got their point on the board, and they were consistently trying different things to see what stuck until they found what worked for them. And in that round, it particularly was one player locking in on the flank, while you had your duelist, you had your Yoru extending forward, ensuring that they couldn't set up for those cohesive retake attempts.
Yeah, and even then, I mean, they had a lot of ultimates to go ahead and invest, at least to kind of make the problem not nearly as dire as what we're typically used to seeing. So, I mean, Concordia, though, to lose a first blood, this is something that we haven't really seen too much of yet. So I want to see whether they can actually kind of capitalize off the fact that they have a man advantage. Whether they want to really kind of push on the aggression, make sure to just hammer down those numbers and get them one by one and just really feed into that. Or if they're just going to play more passive. let the problem come to them and understand that once again, setting up for this kind of flank watch. So with the Cypher alive, that's really who you're relying on. You're looking to get things done there. You're looking to not even worry about that flank and just set up all the way on this A site, where even then, once again, we have players that are just coming at these alternative angles. Get Castle up there towards Tube, able to just squeeze their way through, become that menace in the back line, but still at the end of the day, Concordia, they have an outstanding game awareness to know where these players are coming from, and better yet, just a lot better discipline to their approaches of these problems and solutions that they can just easily clean up any kind of sight hole that's being made by UO Green.
I mean, when I look at that round, I look at praising UO Green for how much widespread map control they did have, because I typically like players that are in all those positions, because then you're dragging the attention of players from the CSP Blue squad while they're retaking. The concern is it feels like they're not very thought out in terms of the execution, because that spike was not planted for any of those players, just the cave ones, and even then, the Viper still tucked away fearlessly, sticking, weathering the storm, and the Cypher had nothing they could do about it. So if they are going to play for those late round conditions, they need to think about it sooner here. But for now, the success they found on the A side, execute that plant, they're going to try and replicate here off of this Hunter's Fury. The only concern is going to be Eden here. Going to get the timing off as the Toxic Screen falls for one, but with it getting traded out, it's going to be a plant, a 3-on-3, and now the question becomes, do you expect this flank?
At this point of the gaming, you kind of have to, right? But, I mean, they still just don't see it coming underway. They do find themselves a nice little trade, and Congus being on site, you can find maybe some necessary kills. So you've already given that cue over to Jake to let him know that somebody's on these stairs. If you can go ahead and clear out that guy, I can get out the site for free, and we can go ahead and just completely pinch out this spike area. And that's what you see them waiting for, seeing if they can pick off Congus. But Jake just does not have the time of day. And knowing that you have another duelist towards the outside of the map on that outer temple, I just don't really know if the job is going to get done, which is a benefit here for UO Green, all things considered. This game has not gone in their direction so far, and every single round it seems like they can really scrape together. Whether or not they have one player or 4 players alive at the end of it, so long as they give themselves at least a round, they got to get this third to give themselves somewhat of a presence and say, this map is worth it. That first half, we can at least have some shred of light at the end of it to say this next half is going to be doable. Because 10-2, realistically, I mean, to start off your day, it is just not going to be it.
That is a great way to put it. And, I mean, you still have a 7-5 in the cards here. I mean, if you win this round, that lead that's been built up by Concordia, the economy's not going to match it here. So they will be reset to a save. You should be able to get these rounds starting to get tied together. I mean, you've already gotten the first blood, but unfortunately, you weren't able to punish Asino. And now, here comes the response. Here comes the double down in the form of that Reckoning being invested. And they have flooded and taken over that mid space tenfold. So you're back to square one. And not only that, but they have spike control.
Yeah, I mean, it is just, once again, UO Green in a situation where things aren't working out well for them. Not on just the kind of the post plant, but even then just looking at anything around the map where they're just going on a rescue mission. They have to get the spike before they can even look at a site. And quite frankly, with 50 seconds remaining, they got the time to do it. But goodness gracious, there is just so much they're going to have to really do to squeak this one out. And knowing it's just going to be for that third, knowing that this is, once again, another buy round for them. This is going to be that last round before they get diminished right back to an eco. So, I mean, this is Concordia, not only what will be their 8th round, but technically their 9th if they end up finding it. So UO Green, this is honestly, I want to say, their best chance, because by the time that 9th round rolls around, Concordia's going to be willing to press every ult button under the sun.
True. It's Monkus here. More going for a save, maybe going for some cheeky frags. But it's a smart decision to make. It's a 1v4.
Yeah.
You had like 20 seconds left and spikes in no man's land. My concern lies in the fact that Concordia St. Paul Blue, they're searching for this player, namely Chetty, who's been at the top of that leaderboard, looking to pad the stats just a bit more, but looks like that timer might expire here unless they W key it, and they do! The 3K to ensure that the economy for UO Green is going to get dashed. They can continue this forward charge towards racking up these rounds, and at this point, Mick, it just feels like Jake and Chetty competing to see who's going to get the top dog, the top duelist in this lobby.
Yeah, and I think, honestly, even then, it's a testament to what you mentioned in terms of the competition to start things off with. You talked about that double duelist, and even then more so, I mentioned that it was more so if your team actually felt like they were heated up, and those two specifically, I mean, let's be real. They were ready for this. They wanted this, if anything. They said, thank goodness, you guys have just kind of handed this to us, quite frankly. if this is an aim duel map, it's an aim labs map that we'll start taking the hand of. So considering they're starting off extremely strong, just once again really nailing things in, it comes down once again to this round where you do know that it's an easy queue for a lot of these players being lined up inside this tube, that if that door opens, they're not going to have really a fight to take here, quite frankly. The range will not play into their favor. And for Sova to go ahead and keep on holding things down and trying to be taking these fights, it creates that domino effect where now you actually have a rifle in the hands of UO Green to maybe get something done here.
Yeah, that first blood's nice. You've taken so much control in the most unconventional route to this B site, but that is control nonetheless. You've circumvented that Viper's Pit. You've dashed the usage, the investment of that high-ticket ultimate. My concern here is that they still don't have the best weapons, and we've seen CSP Blue confident, comfortable in retakes like these. It's going to be more a factor of the unknown that gets them these frags, gets them this advantage. And so far, it has panned out. Kong is the one that does have that rifle collected from that first blood, holding down the fort for this squad. Now, only concern is that their own utility was obscuring these players, but you shouldn't be taking these fights if you are the remaining members of UO Green. You need to be buying down that clock, playing only when Spike is tapped in. I want to see a double jump up. That's what's going to happen here, but it's a firing line, and another round still going to go to favor of CSP. Yeah. Had to take a breath there and be like, is it actually gonna happen?
That's where you go free cam mode, and please just look at that. I gotta see if that ring lines up or not, because even then there's still about a 1/10 of a second of a delay between that second ring popping, but still, nonetheless, it was a close call. But Concordia had all the faith in the world to actually lock that thing down. Everything you saw, Chetty, not really taking the risk to go ahead and get out of dodge and use that TP, just knowing that, all right, the confidence there, the spike, the defuse goes off, and even then still, another round's going to be accumulated here for Concordia. So this is another good stance, at least for UO Green. We talked about ultimates and how their rounds so far, at least one of the 2 rounds they found, was off the back of just a massive invulsement. I mean, just pressing the X button over and over again. Keep in mind, last time when they used its dimensional drift, there wasn't anybody on site. It was completely given up. They play for a retake to some degree, but as it stands right now, you don't have that benefit. It is just blood on site, but it's mostly in the hands of Jake until finally the dimensional drift is expired, and it's Chetty VAL once again killing his doppelganger, all left down to a singular individual that is going to be Kale. That narrow theft in hand, but still, the narrow theft isn't going to do much for you when all these other enemies are running right at you.
CSD Blue said last round was too close for comfort. We're not playing retake. We are locking in for this last round of the half, securing that 10-2, and it shows just how well-rounded this squad is at the moment. And obviously it was led there by Jake a little bit because they realized Chetty was getting too far ahead in terms of their frags. And if you're UO Green, you're not really expecting that, considering you have been given sights before.
Yeah, I think honestly, I mean, a pistol round when you're sitting at a 10-2, realistic, no matter what, we're going to be seeing a force next round. The side of UO Green, right? I mean, either it's the game's over with, or we're just trying to, once again, surmount this comeback to some extent. And honestly, with Concordia on the attacking side, with sweeping things up and going towards that B area of the map, knowing if they get this early read and know if this is going to be a default, I would like to know if this is kind of a first round setup only, or if this is the actual hold we're going to be seeing from the Viper and the Cypher here, because surely this could be a lesson learned from Concordia that if this is going to be the more difficult site to break, they're not going to want to go here in general.
Oh, a pistol desperately needed by UO Green, and
Trades.
Castle at least grabbing a few frags. It's bought enough time for the rotations of Monkus, of Kale, who have followed through with their own frags here. And now they've shut down control over the site. They've gotten Spike in their control, and they've bought enough time for this flank from Congus to come in with the Deagle hot ready, and Ostino was given the 1v1 at first, but it's one they will not win out. So UO Green stems the bleeding for now, gets the economy flowing early on. The only question is CSP Blue going to respect that? And my guess is yes, because they're not going to throw away this first map. And now, they just to ensure that they make this round clean, because they really need to convert that third round more than anything, Mick.
Right, I think that's the biggest thing, and honestly, probably the one consideration they're keeping as at the top of their list of problems right now is going to be that third round, not this one, quite frankly. That's what you see the purchases, the forces come through for, not just kind of small and mediocre weapons here like the Marshall, or even then kind of some Sheriffs, or it's just something that feels like it has a relatively small caliber comparative. you're looking at these Bulldogs, you're looking at these Outlaws, you're looking at these big guns. If you can go ahead and buy up these just pieces of utility off the back of these arsenals, quite frankly, you're hoping that you can find these team shots and at least cut one or two of those rifles out early, force a rotation from Concordia, and then pick those guns up in the next. But right now, Concordia, I think they're cooking up plans to know that more than likely, if there's not an Outlaw already out towards mid, you're looking to close the gap, get into that bridge, find a weapon to work with, and then just see if you can flip things on its head. But now, with the timing coming their way, Among Us ready for the roll, it's going to be Kale. There's a backup as well, just completely cutting off and completely suffocating this team back towards that B main area.
And this is exactly what we wanted to see. Like you mentioned, not giving any of these weapons over. Unfortunately, Conkus's health line can't last forever, so that's a weapon drop. That's actually Spike. They'll have to grab and decide where to head to next. With only a classic, not much you can get done. That weapon, not even the best upgrade since it was a deagle, so you're allowed to overextend as that duelist, as Conkus. Now, I mean, they're headed back to the B site where Viper's been anchoring, where they never left, alongside that Cypher utility, which makes it an easy and surefire team ace. And just as flawless as a bonus as we saw from CSP Blue to convert their third round last half, making this a promising conversion round, especially with that Vandal bot.
I mean, giving us a little bit of hope in the process. And honestly, that's all it really takes to kind of give the rest of your team an opportunity to really get themselves back into this, knowing that things just haven't been working out well on that defense, so long as you can really say, maybe we can replicate the exact same thing when it comes around to the second half. If they had a good defense, we have a Sentinel, so we can do exactly just that as well. And depending on where that Cypher's playing, as I mentioned earlier, it's going to be a switch. It's going to be completely different. I was expecting that B site, when you have a Viper there, not to double down the Viper and the Cypher, and that's exactly what it was. It was just a round one hold, expect that the utility would be enough to kind of carry on and deny the game, to really just make that first initial push an absolute utter nightmare and just really divert that attention towards the A site, where Cypher's once again going to be ready while that Viper solo holds B. But with some initial engagements is what we're keeping our eyes on right now and looking for. It's Chuddy VAL who goes ahead and bites the bullet first, finds that gun, finds that Kale player, and makes sure that Cypher set that we talked about, and at least want to put some emphasis on, it's already done.
So less than a minute left on the clock. It really was just send out a player, see what they can find before you hit a site, and since one of those duelists is gone, you have Chetty to rely on for the re-entry onto A, and they caused enough chaos over there towards Elbow, towards B, that they drew the numbers and made this a surefire A-side play. The concern here now is that UO Green has been fast to rotate, fast to act, but this backside challenge from Chetty is the perfect counter. Castle spotted out by the Owl drone, the collapse onward for the remaining members of CSP Blue ensures that they shut out a potential anti-eco conversion. They continue racking up rounds to try and depart here from Breeze, depart from UO Green's pick victorious. And it's really going to come down to this round, right? If you win this, if you're UO Green, you keep CSP Blue off of map point, and you may even, shift the economy of one or two of those players, and it'll have to be a decision from CSP Blue of how much they want to invest.
I mentioned the free camp perspective earlier. It's not very often you get a team, or at least a player, kind of just going ahead and hovering inside that Owl drone as fights are going on. Typically, when you get that last player call, you ditch it. You make sure to play off the trades, worst case, just in case things do start to line up for the opposing side. But one thing that's lining up so far is at least kind of the aggression. The exec here on its A site once more, because obviously UO Green do not really have the best arsenal in the world. They don't really have everything to play with in terms of this round so far, but they do have themselves at least positioning. Already circumnavigating the entire map, getting back into that spawn, looking for a pinch here onto the side of Concordia, and already surmounting that first pick, and it's going to go under that sofa. But even then, Chetty and Jake are both alive and well, and these are the two fraggers we've been keeping our eyes on over and over again. One in the forefront on top of that spike, the other one kind of sitting towards the back, but with one already knocked off in a 2v4 situation. Things could line up, quite frankly, for Chetty. As you find a first, a second, the other two are right there close to the spike, and you're playing off the audio cues, but still it's not enough with an actual aggression coming out. And Austino's trying to play that deny game, trying to hold things out, but it's just not going to be enough. UO Green do find themselves another round. This game will continue, thankfully, and they at least hold on to a couple rifles carrying into the next.
Yeah, if they won that fight against Monkus, that would have been a very different outcome to the round. A very different chance of getting the defuse on the board, and I mean, at this point, like I said, the economy dash for CSP Blue here temporarily, so it should be another round for UO Green in theory. And
let's go.
My question's going to be, when is CSP Blue going to take a timeout? My guess is it's not going to be till like 9/11 when they still have, you know, a lot of rounds to work with. But concern here being that they know they have worse weapons, so why are they being so aggressive out of UO Green?
Right.
They've already lost one of their duelists. Castle as well, being spotted out by this Soviet utility, gives a lot of information to CSP Blue. And it looks like they're just going to try and cut their losses, maybe fake a rotation. Now the concern will fall to that lurking Yoru towards mid. Congus there to cut off these rotations if they get the timing just right.
It really comes down to whether or not we can actually see this battle. That battle in mid is really what everything comes down to. And with that Viper Orb coming out, that's going to give a little bit of an actual emphasis over to this Yoru, that Congus player, looking to see if maybe some aggression wants to come out, and even then kind of give it a little more passivity in that exact spot and queuing a couple more minutes. Because when you see that orb come out, you're not going to be pushing it, unless you do want to know, like, definitively, I do win that. But already, with the rotation coming out, it even more so tames that player back towards the middle of the map, which gives ample space for Concordia to just kind of make an absolute tear on this site. And I'm surprised they haven't seen Jake pick up another gun. Still rocking that Guardian in the meantime, but, I mean, everybody else, though, you have plenty of bodies here, but you just don't have the health pool behind it to really get Congus in a spot that just seems impossible. But with that Owl Drone already going ahead and missing the queue and not seeing that player, Congus finally showing the face, having the ultimate to work with, but still that's not really much of a solo venture. Having the decoy off the back of it, but even then, nobody's really falling for this, quite honestly. It just comes down to the 1v1 between Ostino and Congus, and well, Concordia, they have seemed airtight in their gunfights today so far to where you really expect them to win that one.
Yeah, Congus is doing a good job navigating that 1v3 situation, but unfortunately, yeah, it does come down to having more HP at the end of the day when you have that numbers advantage. And I am surprised that Ostino didn't recognize that they had gate crashed over towards wall. Maybe from the audio queue, maybe thinking it was a fake, but either way, you get your trades, you get the round, you get the map point, which is the important thing here if you're the CSP Blue squad. And the buy not looking the best for UO Green either means that they're going to have to lean into some of these ultimates, lean into maybe some early round aggression as well to catch the players of CSP Blue off guard. But this has been read as well by the side of Concordia. They've already found Congus. They're going to be looking for Munkus as well, but they're going to go ahead and grab that gun upgrade, get out, and ensure that this round doesn't get completely dashed of all hope.
I think, quite frankly, I mean, still a good result nonetheless for Concordia and what they resulted in getting in that round. I mean, already seen that they found themselves, you know, the one kill, but UO Green they do get an exchange. They barely missed out on finding that kill on the Jake, and that's kind of one of your MVPs that you do want to knock off early. But Chetty's just another really big concern. You're looking to get those two duels out of the way. You cut that entire push effort onto a site in half, but even then still, Chetty alone, whether or not it comes down to an actual W key press and just an actual outright push coming through and compared to something being tricky, there's not much of a real difference. The guy just kind of runs over everything, but Monkus is able to go ahead and at least go ahead and find the initial pick, get that guy to delay a little more time, and maybe just kind of, you know, play things out. The Reckoning coming out, giving all the information to where players may be on site, but not enough attention actually given to it to respect that, because still, regardless of all the ultimates being popped right now, it still feels like UO Green had themselves the upper hand. But in a 2v2 situation, Concordia trying to get that spike down, they could go ahead and at least get that real estate fight to themselves. But Chifu not getting a read, and even then not giving that assist to Ostino, who didn't understand where the players are coming from. UO Green get themselves a 6th round. And, well, there's still 6 more to go, but it's a heck of a lot better than what we've really seen so far.
Yeah, that was just a matter of unfortunate timing. I mean, that Hunter's Fury from Grox reveals their position, that they're either coming from mid, they're either coming from flank, that they aren't alongside Kale. And I really don't think Ostino should have been taking that 1v1, albeit, yes, their Toxin ran out. Yes, maybe they felt like they were forced to take the fight, but that obscurity isolating the remaining players of UO Green was that much more important for securing that round. So when it was gone, yeah, the attention of Chifu split in multiple directions, the round falls apart. A 6 for UO Green. Now, though, again, it feels like UO Green gets antsy at these round starts. They search for early frags, and I'm just hoping that the round that they get punished for it isn't the end of the game.
I think still, I mean, we see him in a good spot. This is really the first time we've seen Concordia be put on an actual eco in this game so far, and that's something we've been really needing for UO Green specifically. Because now they can actually put this game into a state where they can just have themselves a legitimate buy, then an eco, legitimate buy, and an eco to face off against on a round-to-round basis where they only cut the necessary rounds if they do start to accumulate these simultaneously to be only 3 rounds they have to legitimately win. So that's a nice luxury they're affording to themselves right now, but they really just cannot fumble the bag on that. Considering this match point, that's the best perspective you can go into this with, saying honestly it's realistically only 9 to 12, but you still have the overtime to concern yourself with. With already some sands coming out, some good picks to be made off the back of it, and finally a gun to be accumulated here for the side of Concordia, it's still going to be choke held by the likes of Chifu, understanding that one gun in the hands of these Concordia players could be absolutely disastrous for any of us. So I think honestly, once again, these rounds are looking clean, and better yet, they're not over-investing on them as well. As much as I would like to see maybe an operator come out for the Jet, they're still just kind of keeping themselves roped in and understand that, sure, these rounds aren't going to be perfect for us, so long as one player's alive, we'll have the money to maybe go ahead and buy somebody off. We've seen it work so far, right? It hasn't really kind of skewed too much. I think this is more just as an adjustment. It comes out of Concordia, and you agree with that. They're actually ready for any adjustment to be thrown at them. I mean, we're going to see these ultimates being saved up, right? And I think you're going to have to get to a stage to where, A, you get to keep eyes on the Viper. I think you save the dimensional drift no matter what for that Viper's pit. That's the one solution for that problem. Otherwise, things are just going to look impossible. But everything else, you just go ahead and get out of dodge if we do see it being thrown onto a site. So realistically, this is doable. This is great for him. And already, mowing through here. And A, that's also an outstanding way to make yourself favored.
I mean, they're eco frags. This is the round where they were, you know, planning potentially for the future. And yeah, Congus obviously catching the entire team by surprise, showing why that duelist's kit can be a force to be reckoned with. So now, Jake and the CSP Blue Yoda are just seeing what damage they can do, seeing if they could find any hero plays, like Chetty finding that frag on the rocks through Hull's concern now is if they fall back, they would be falling into vents, into Congus, but Jake has taken care of that issue here. So now they feel like they might have a semblance of a control. Only concern is that's where Kale's been anchoring since the round start. 40 seconds left to deal with them. They've made it past the camera, ever so barely getting that timing proper. But Kale's aware that they might have been timing, and they find the frag accordingly. The question is, can Chetty get the refrag and make things possible? 1v1 in the cards. The last member castle rotating over. They might see that gate crash pass on by as well.
And if there's anybody who can really do it, keep in mind, and still it's these two players. They have been the top frag for their team this entire time, so they're going to get it done. Well, honestly, who better else than literally just those? Fine. I mean, I felt they're relatively similar in terms of what they provide. The one thing that I'm going to be questioning is, at least as we do see already, one of those guiding lights come out, the investment of those. That's another thing to kind of keep eyes on. Guiding light early investments really aren't a big deal over the course of this entire game. It's just set to our muscle memory to throw them out earlier, as I used to be a Sky main, but now you're in this area where, can we do that anymore? No. You throw a flash, you're expecting to come back and said, oh, yeah, we only got one more flash left. And even then, you can't really go for the rejuvenate. You can't find maybe some kind of heals off the back of it if you did opt for that secondary purchase. So I'm curious to see what really Concordia's going to do here to kind of play off the back of that, and whether they can actually maybe hold on to these sites or maybe go for some of the retake. Already get things underway, Jake. I mean, sure, Chetty's going to be hopping off the duel list, but I mean, let's be real. Jake, if you're going to hold on to it, at least give us a good first round and show that momentum's carrying over.
I mean, that just shows that UO Blue thought there might have been an over-rotation from CS Blue, and CS Blue says, no, we're anchoring all the way till Spike is planted. Fortunately, Munkus was able to sneak around amidst the chaos, getting gun upgrade, but now they're about to double swing the remaining players, and Jake said, all right, now that Chetty's out of the duelist role, their top frag will be mine. With that 4K to start the round, to deny UO Green another pistol, it's going to get them off the right foot here.
Yeah, I mean, already half of your ultimate here to get things started off with, and then you have earned yourself more than enough of a testament to get what I would say, honestly, say somebody go ahead and buy me a Vandal. I'm feeling it. I mean, realistically, that's what you want to be going for here. or a Phantom, but I would prefer to maybe go for the range and not give anything over if things do go bad here at any given moment. But UO Green, once again, not winning themselves a pistol round just yet. And I think, honestly, that's really, or at least a starting pistol round. And that's what they needed here. They needed to go ahead and shut things down, slow the game up, and it's not that big of a deal from what happened in that last map, because if you do let that first pistol round go over when you haven't accumulated anything, you have that lingering dread of, okay, what happened may occur once more.
And so now, I mean, when you have better weapons, it's gonna be a pretty smooth sailing round, unless, again, lurking Vipers get the best of you. So, Jake, star player for UO Green, being out of the picture here, means that for now things are going to slow down a bit. They're going to try and lean towards this what should be a weaker site for CSP Blue, given that frag. And yeah, this toxic screen, while it's not for the standard Viper lurk, is going to pave the way pretty much up to a default plant. The question is, what can Chifu do to disrupt it? Or Eaton, apparently.
Do what you do best. Frag out. And that's what Concordia does, at least for one more round, to get themselves a second. Having the gun advantage, we're not really too shocked, at least in terms of that result, as they do find themselves once again with the exact same thing we saw in the second round of the first map. 4 players carrying over guns, just kind of working with what they got. Things are also a little bit cheaper because they didn't have to invest for those long-range weaponries like the Bulldog and the Guardians. While we do see a Guardian being purchased, the Spectres are going to excel much more in a map like this. So it's kind of a luxury to some degree, at least for Concordia, saying where the last map worked out well for us, and honestly, as these guns and these sightlines get closer and closer and closer, things get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, and even then with Raze, having a free paint shell, you don't even really need that, considering the gun being carried up from the last one has enough, well, damage in the back of a headshot to get a single first.
You know, we saw this on Breeze when they're on those eco rounds. They search for that first blood and they get out unscathed. They don't overheat. They take what's granted to them and back off. Now, Jake with his reposition on a truck is actually predicted, but again, the Guardian, the longer ranges here on Vine favoring that weapon, and they're going to steal that frag away, and suddenly we're looking at a similar potential start to what we saw over on Breeze, albeit round's not over yet. Grox is still trying to find an option, a plan B for UO Green, but there's already less than a minute left, and things aren't looking promising.
And I love this already, at least for Concordia, going ahead, just holding their ground, knowing that obviously off the back of just 2 kills, nobody's budging. But even then, better yet, we see the rest of these players just kind of being absolute menaces, because still UO Green has that just lingering dread of over the A main area of the map. You see that no rotations being queued towards it. You would expect players to come in that direction, but still they're saying, honestly, the guns that they're dropping, while they may be important, sure, and we would like to not have to spend that money, who cares, quite frankly? Jake's the one who earned the majority of those guns anyways, and even then still, if somebody doesn't get the pickup, we now have 3 rounds back to back to back, and a showstopper to shut down whatever may come at us next.
Yeah, I mean, having that showstopper online this early is insane. And they're not even going to really have to invest it this round because, again, the fact they won their bonus, they collected those rifles, it means that UO Green not off to a great start. Stingers, Sheriffs, they're going to have to be a little bit more creative on these execs. And, you know, yes, you might catch Chifu off guard, but the trade follows suit. Unfortunately, that's going to be weapons collected for the squad. And now the weight of the world again on Jake's shoulders. Now, I said we might not see the showstopper, but I might be lying to you. This would be a great time to invest it. All these players tucked away. You know where they are in these close quarters, Jake.
Come on. There's no way you don't go for the showstopper there, but quite frankly, I mean, Jake, that's the one with the confidence. That's the player we've kept our eyes on this entire series thus far, and quite frankly, if Jake says they don't need an ultimate, then Jake doesn't need an ultimate. The gun does plenty enough work in the hands of this guy. And even then, Chetty's making the call between this dynamic duo, saying, I may not be in a duelist just like you or a Yor this time around, but even as a Viper, I can make a call to say, let me handle the last 2. And that's exactly what's done and settled there. So a 4-0 start here for Concordia. Looking outstanding once more for them. And even UO Green, this is going to be their chance to make sure to kind of stall what we saw in that last map. Well, we did see that 6-0 start. 4-0 isn't nearly as bad, but it could always get there. And you want to make sure to kind of not really replicate that problem. Otherwise, you're going to be looking at maybe the same exact map result.
Come on, little homies.
I mean, it was 5-0, I believe, when we saw that timeout from UO Green over on Breeze, and we're getting towards that here, but the economy flow is a little bit different this go-around. I mean, the 4th round, they have these weapons to work with, so if they win this round, we might see a different course of action out of that coaching team, out of that IGL call, but for now, slow and steady, no overextensions to worry about from CSP Blue. And, I mean, it's just proactive utility usage from Ostino that's holding down this front line, denying any side execute as the real threat comes through the teleporter.
I love it. Already just going ahead and becoming enough of a menace to just kind of push the problem and deliver it. And with one-day delivery over to the hands of these UO Green players, not too much you can really do there. And even knowing the rebound and the momentum being drawn off the back of that showstopper will be able to get you right back tucked away into a corner where a trade can't be made, even if you are just absolutely running it down towards them. So, with everything given here to Concordia, they understand that, sure, this is that stage of the game where we're seeing kills being made, players getting things off, and even then the Gecko getting every single plant so far. But what's that really going to amount to? A singular Thrash to work with in this round, and when you have nothing but eco weapons to work with, besides that one Vandal being stracked out by Rox, I mean, it's not enough to really invest it, where you know that it's going to be a dead round, where it's just not having the full effect you're expecting it to.
Yeah, and I mean, with Orbital Strike Online, that's one of the few ultimates that can counter a Thrash play. As long as you know where the Thrash is coming from, you know exactly where that Gecko player is, and they have to choose between their life and the Thrash impact for their team. And 9 times out of 10, they're going to get out of dodge play with their team. So here, we're going to go for this A attempt. Nobody really addressing short just yet. They're playing these more backside positions because their confidence in these long-range duels. I mean, at least Jake, as we've seen them win them, even Eaton's been able to shut down attempts like these, but for now, no information about where these players are, and it's really just the bait, the cheese of the trap, and they're
Oh my god, no!
Oh my gosh! Just how do they know?
Fish in a barrel, lambs in a slot, or whatever you want to call it. It's just an absolute collective of blood, and Jake there at the end still, not as an impressive an ultimate, but still the crosshair placement, the flick there, understanding that well. You're probably scared senseless right now, and we're just going to go ahead and close up shop. 6-0 in, already once again replicating what we've seen in that last map, but not in terms of the times that the timeouts were taken.
As close as possible, they can have a chance when things are flipped. I mean, I've typically seen Bind as a defense-sided map, but what are your thoughts on it, Mick?
I think, honestly, I mean, there's a lot still at play here, right? I mean, technically, you can dwindle it down to saying this game is still up in the air. I mean, there's still a lot that can be done, but UA Green, they have to answer with the same exact prowess. And I just don't know if those capabilities are there. As much as I hate to say it, I don't like to go ahead and kind of give the benefit of the doubt the teams and kind of shut them down early. But realistically, you have to kind of have something here. And already getting that initial pick off towards Shetty, it's a good start. First Bloods are definitely going to help out in the meantime, but, I mean, it really comes down to Concordia and how their retake looks. We have seen Jake be an absolute menace. I mean, that is just definitive. He literally a raid boss in this regard. Not even needing to see the players you're shooting to kill him. And so long as that player's out, I mean, I think, quite frankly, anything's doable. But every single round, it feels like Jake just is going absolutely nowhere but to your front door to collect souls like the Grim Reaper himself.
And the fact that they're not even using all of their utility to do it. I mean, one paint shell there completely shatters the crossfire the UO Green members had set up. They take one fight after the other. I mean, with the guiding light confirming where these players were, Thrash is that further final indicator. They have all the info they need to collapse inward, to retake that site, to keep this flawless run on Bind alive, proving why it's their map pick, to say the least. And I can see why.
I mean, just something different. It is just wild what's going on here. UO Green, I gotta feel bad for him, at least to some degree, because sure, you have all these other ultimates, but the Viper's Pit is the one where you're saying, at least if you get it down, that, hey, we more than likely have a round here to work with. Are you ever gonna get in a post-plant scenario? That's the problem. Are you gonna be able to take that space? Are you gonna, A, win that 50-50 where you don't run into Jake on site? And are you gonna be able to get the spike off fast enough? And it really comes down to the wingman, or that you actually get that placement there. But Jake, once again, coming out with the swing, already pushing out towards A main, and everybody else in shower, just with an overwhelming presence of just one by one, rush the guy down, find the kill, put it in a 2v1 situation. But Castle's gonna be able to squeak out with their life at least for another second. Maybe look at the rotation to go over towards that B side, because, well, the call's been made that it's open over here, and the Viper's Pit I mentioned isn't even realistically going on top of that side. It's going more towards that kind of back that spawn area. But regardless, the spike does at least maneuver its way to the midst of it.
And you got that post-plant scenario that you were asking for. Yes, it's less than ideal with Castle at 15 HP, but they have mollies to work with, and the players are actually divided from this CSP Blue squad. What stands out to me is the fact that all these trap plays for CSP Blue have just worked out tenfold. This round was no exception. Jake has at the time, and the question is, are they confident enough to clear the corner? And they don't. So 3K for Castle keeps things here in contention, and yeah, Ostino says no real hope, might as well save, even though I'm sure your pockets don't necessarily need that. You might even get a reposition to get some exits here. No, yes, maybe so. We'll have to wait and see, because they're going on a marathon.
I mean, you got so much money already. You've already found so many kills. Your entire team is utterly stacked that there's no real downside to just chasing for those kills at the end of the round. But the big thing here is UO Green have at least a new note to put up onto their post board saying the Grim Reaper is at least killable. But does that just delay your problem? Does that tick them off? Well, we'll find out, because Jake being at 15-3 and a 5-0 here to kind of start things off, because as I mentioned earlier, just like 2 rounds ago, the game is still pretty darn young, all things considered, at least this map specifically. And just this guy has been making absolute utter work of everybody. And are you just delaying your problem here? Are you at least kind of noting down where he's going to be? And it's been A every single time. I think realistically noting that you want to go B, right? You want to kind of keep more eyes towards that B. You want to try more of these B execs, because you just want to circumnavigate this guy, at least get that spike down and put the pressure of the clock against him.
And I mean, my only concern here is that UO Green got this first point on the board even later than what we saw over on Breeze. So it was a 10-2 end last map. Obviously, CSP Blue is going to look to improve it on their own map pick. But again, trap plays upon trap plays. Wingman no longer a factor for that spike plant. They have taken control over the site, but even that feels like it's CSP Blue's, you know, graces their mercy, because they're all set up here to re-entry into the site off the Seekers. And we've seen how seamless these processes can be. So now, how does this utility from UO Green retaliate?
Well, they got plenty of room to get it done, and they got plenty of time on the clock as well, considering that the entire team is already here, ready to roll. I mean, they've gotten everything necessary to get the job done, and even the Snakebite going ahead and being a little bit too far left, you're not really concerned about that spike being covered by utility. It just comes out of the guns, which it's much easier to take care of, quite frankly, because they're all going to swing in at one time, and Concordia make quick work of whatever bodies get in front of them.
And now, I mean, 8-1. Mike, all right, time for prediction hour. You know, put your thinking cap or your, I guess, psychic cap on Mick.
Ugh.
Do we get another 10-2? Or do you think, or more or less than 10-2 is the question?
I don't like these questions that much. I don't like, cause it's, I mean, I want to be neutral. I want to really talk about UO Green, the potential of this team, but quite frankly, I mean, Concordia, I think they're going to space these ultimates out. I think they have more than enough resources to get themselves to once again another 10-2, because even then, without the ultimates, even then when it feels like they could be in a deficit, their control over this map is enough to just completely intimidate the side of UO Green, to where even if they wanted to play this game and get themselves to a stance, it's going to have to take a little bit of luck, quite frankly, because just the general menacing just fragability of the squad of Concordia is enough to literally put you in your place, to retreat you back towards spawn, to where you just feel like you necessarily can't play the game, and it just does not let them pan out their game plans as much as they'd like to.
And this round, we're going to take a delve into the mind of the support player Ostino, who's been propelling these plays, these retakes, propelling Jake into frags, and you can see how well timed their rotations have been as well. And it's just every round they're in the right place to set up these trap plays, to set up these situations that Jake can then capitalize off of. This round, no exception. Dump all your utilities so Jake can save theirs for the clutches, save their utility for the late round, and at that point, the round's already over.
I mean, let's be real. I mean, we're expecting that already. Any audio cue is going to be enough for the Wolves to just start hunting here for the side of Concordia. And I mean, they are hungry, they are ready, and, well, they show that they're consistent as well. So you talked about the 10-2. To some degree, when we see these rounds and how they start to work, I mean, quite frankly, I'm looking at something maybe even worse, knowing that, I mean, we only really used that Rolling Thunder the last round. The Viper's Pit, they're not going to invest that thing, realistically. I mean, at least to actually get themselves into a round circumstance where it's looking doable for them, they're never going to be in those shoes. It's going to be more so to kind of circumvent the team and allocate more resources towards the opposite side of the map. You don't want to take that gamble to be complacent anywhere. Concordia just want to see these players. They want to look at their faces. They want to take the shots fair and square.
And so for now, this round, again, it feels like Ostino's in the right place at the right time, and they're setting up this rotation play for Meaton, who has the orbital strike again, and is using it to go on the offensive. They corner Congus. They've taken out the majority of the players for UO Green, but that's been met in kind. Yes, they have spike control, but for how much longer? The answer is as long as they need. Shifu has the perfect flank to cut off that teleport play to collect spike.
In the half.
And just like that, 10-1. All right, you know, I was thinking like the odds are they would get less than the 10-2, right? Because it's like majority of the rounds, like there's more probable outcomes. But I think we are gonna get that 11-1. What do you think, Mick?
I mean, I said it earlier. I didn't really want to be too much of a negative Nancy in terms of what UO Green could bring to the table, but I mean, it really isn't much of me beating down on UO Green. It's just more of a testament to Concordia. I mean, like I said, they just are not letting Oregon play this game the way they want to. They're never really given the opportunity, and even then on a round-to-round basis, they're changing it up every single time. Right here, a little bit of a curveball. Why not push out A every single time? We know you guys aren't going to come here anymore. Eventually, they're going to try B, and here it is. The flash off the back of it, pushing right out, knocking players off. There goes Oregon's showstopper because it was invested. And then Breach is just laughing to the bank and saying, hey, you go ahead and make that investment. Jake is still alive somewhere, and he's going to make quick work of you, and he doesn't need a rocket launcher to get it done.
Now, I mean, Ian coming out makes it a 1v1 here. Means that Jake, again, left in the clutch position, and again, will deliver. I mean, they've got to be like 100% in those situations, making it an 11-1. And, I mean, at this point, you lose pistol and it's GG.
Right. I mean, that's all it really comes down to. This is just one of not... and even then, let's go ahead and keep note of Concordia, because I don't know how much time we're really going to be able to draw this out inside the post-series. But 11-1, last map 10-2, Concordia. I mean, this is at 6-11 seeding between these two teams on the bracket.
True.
And this is the kind of differential we're seeing, quite frankly, which is just absolutely, utterly insane. Every single one of these games are expecting maybe an 8-4, like 8-4 is kind of my prediction for every single one of these maps for the rest of these series. But for a 10-11-1 consistently by Concordia, I mean, it's just an utter menace of a team that we're looking at.
Speaking of menace, speaking of fights untold, fault line here making easy work of the UO Green attempt. Now I'm going to molly to try and starve off the attempt on the B site, but it's not going to slow down Jake, who's just going to take space tenfold, clear out all these angles so their team has that security once the incendiary fades. Unfortunately, Grox does get the timing on Ostino there, but they don't realize the wraparound that has already occurred. And with you having 1 HP, even a long-range frenzy cannot get shut down out of Jake, and that is map and series points for Concordia State Paul Blue here, already in the Champions Nationals round of 16.
I mean, something's going on over there in Concordia. I mean, they have something going on where they are just being called somewhere else, and they say, look, we still got a series to play, so let's just wrap this thing up as fast as possible. And just seeing the way they're playing this game is something I don't think I've seen the entirety, not only just of this season, but of any season. And to see it here in the national stage is just utterly ridiculous, quite frankly. I mean, in a round like this, you're expecting them. I'm expecting nothing but really this 13-1. I mean, sure, you're seeing force come through from Oregon, and you're seeing hopes and dreams to at least kind of keep the game going. But quite honestly, if they've been playing this game to an absolute T, and when they have legitimate weapon advantages, we should just see them just make a reckoning of what this round could be. But already, we're seeing nothing but equilibrium, surprisingly enough. So good stance for them. Make maybe a 12-2, but that's a score line that I don't find myself saying very often.
I mean, you've taken out star player Jake, you've taken out the player who's been on fire with that Brim utility. And again, these clutch players still alive. Chetty, namely, saw their performance on Yoderon Breeze. We'll see if they can get a similar performance here, but none of the shots, none of the utility going in their favor. And again, we might see UO Green hold on. CSP Blue struggling to close things out unless Ostino, the last to stand, can get the job done. Anti-flash, but they run out of bullets. UO Green continues to live, continues to breathe off of that force. And they will convert that second round thrifty to keep their team in it.
I mean, it's a point where, quite frankly, anybody who is watching just can't help but really root for Oregon here. I mean, you're sitting at a 12-2. We were just looking at a 12-1. And it's at the point where you don't see these kind of score lines very often. You at least want to see them give themselves a shot. I mean, with how this season's gone for them, it's drug out for so long. They've made such good work of their respective regions and their conferences beforehand that you just don't want to see it really dwindle down to this, to where it feels like, is there that big of a difference between these conferences? And quite frankly, I mean, sure, but not to this level, right? I mean, you're expecting something relatively close. You're expecting these guys, I mean, all at least in the same division, to kind of be on the same playing ground. But it shouldn't be to this kind of degree. So Oregon, I'm expecting to at least kind of kick things into high gear. And when they say, if we're going to go out, we're going to go out with a bang, I want them to get themselves a couple more. And I think they're going to do just that.
And I think you answered your own question there, Mick, because Concordia, St. Paul Blue, I think is also playing in the Legends division. They qualified by winning last year for that advantage. So this is the best of the best, even with their seeding not proving it. But this round doesn't look like they are going to showcase that ability, likely to the worst weapons to the Eco. And UO Green will stand strong, get that third round, continue the chances at a comeback, but still have 9 more to go, even more than what that comeback on Breeze would have required. And it's really just going to be a question of, when does CSP Blue think they've tried enough times, generated enough content to take that time out, to take that breather, and then close things out.
Yeah, I mean, already, this is another round. It's going to be in that same kind of situation once more, where you're looking at 9 rounds. So the majority of these are going to be in, as I mentioned earlier, that's a lot to call that flip-flop situation, where you're looking at full buy and eco, full buy eco. But I mean, these ecos, they're going to be a moment. It's almost like breathing, right? You're going to have that exhale, but every time you're going to feel that pressure whelping your body. Those are going to be those inhales. Those are going to be those full buy rounds for Concordia, where you're saying, we got to win these. These are the ones that we have to really start to stress out on. Sure, you don't want to lose to a thrifty, but I think this team is more than capable of actually winning some outright rounds when it comes around to the eco. But issue is, it's a gamble to some degree, because while the game is all about skill, when you run into Jake, I just don't know if you can really beat him.
I mean, one of the highest KDAs on Rays out of VAL recently, and they're on par to end things here with an ace. I mean, they have the Pocket Sky to back them up with the regrowth with that heal, and yeah, now with Showstopper online, why not end it in a blaze of glory?
And a Showstopper, and there's no way. He's got to be
it's scripted, bro. Like, yeah.
Ram, yeah, you gotta try,
Hey,
dog.
Rose, I'm gonna cry.
I hate to break it to you, but you gotta try.
Oh, and what a fitting storybook end. The 13-3-2-0 victory for Concordia St. Paul Blue.